The real cost of kindness. They taught you that kindness is strength, that patience is virtue, that understanding people makes you respected. That lie has cost you more than you realize, because kindness, when it's unconditional, is not moral, it's expensive, and you've been paying the price every day. You lost leverage, you lost authority, you lost the ability to walk away without guilt, and worst of all, you train people to expect access to you without consequence. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, not because he hated goodness, but because he understood human nature. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. Niccolo Machiavelli. That wasn't cynicism, that was observation, kindness. Without structure as exposure, kindness feels noble, but to the wrong people it looks like weakness. When you explain instead of deciding, you expose yourself. When you forgive without cost, you erase consequence. When you stay after disrespect, you erase value. You think you're being good. They learn you're safe to exploit, not because they are evil, but because human beings move toward the path of least resistance, and you removed all resistance. Machiavelli warned against this exact mistake. He who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined himself. Every time you empower someone who doesn't respect you, you participate in your own decline. Why good people get disrespected? Look closely. Who gets interrupted? Who gets overworked? Who gets emotionally drained and then discarded? Not the cruel, not the cold, not the unreadable. It's the reliable, the understanding, the always there. People don't mistreat you because you're kind. They mistreat you because your kindness has no price. Unlimited access creates contempt. Predictability kills respect. Familiarity breeds contempt. Machiavelli. And you made yourself familiar to everyone. The silent transaction. You never noticed. Every relationship has an invisible contract. Access in exchange for respect. Presence in exchange for restraint. Generosity in exchange for boundaries. You broke that contract first. You gave access without vetting. Forgiveness without reform. Time without reciprocity. You called it kindness. They called it entitlement. And entitlement doesn't say thank you. The moment kindness turns into control, watch what happens when you say no, not politely, not with explanation, just no. Some people understand. Those are allies. Others push. Guilt you. Question your character. You've changed. I thought you cared. You're being selfish. That's not feedback. That's control attempting to reassert itself. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Machiavelli. They respected your kindness only when it benefited them. The moment it didn't, it became a problem. Kindness is not power. Leverage is power, is not aggression. Power is not cruelty. Power is being optional. It's knowing you can leave and people feel it. It's knowing your absence would cost them. It's knowing access to you is earned, not assumed. Machiavelli was clear. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose. Not because fear is noble, but because fear understands consequence. Love without consequence evaporates. Fear without cruelty stabilizes. Cold is not cruel, it's disciplined. You don't need to hurt anyone. You don't need to dominate. You need to stop overexposing yourself emotionally. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop negotiating your boundaries with people who never negotiated theirs. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is containment. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Let them see calm. Let them feel distance. Let them wonder. Uncertainty restores respect faster than any argument ever will. The real cost of kindness. Kindness costs leverage authority, mystery peace, self-respect, when it's uncontrolled. This isn't about becoming heartless, it's about becoming selective. Give warmth to those who protect it. Give access to those who maintain standards. Give loyalty only where loyalty survives pressure. Everyone else? Screw them, because not everyone deserves your softness, and not everyone should survive your generosity. Machiavelli didn't teach tyranny. He taught survival in a world that rewards awareness, and now you know the price. Kindness is one of the most misunderstood virtues in modern psychology. It is praised, rewarded, and moralized, but rarely examined. Carl Jung warned about this, not directly in slogans, not in advice for the masses, but in something far more dangerous, the structure of the psyche itself. Because kindness, when unconscious, is not virtue, it is compensation, and compensation always hides a shadow. Kindness as a mask. Most people believe kindness is who they are. Jung would say, no. Kindness is often who you decided to appear as. This is persona. The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. Carl Jung. The kind person, the understanding one, the patient one. These identities are not neutral, they are strategies. Strategies formed early, often unconsciously, to secure belonging, safety, approval. You learned that being agreeable reduced conflict, that being helpful earned acceptance, that being gentle kept you needed. So you wore kindness as armor, but armor that never hardens becomes skin, and skin can be cut. The shadow you pay for every conscious identity creates its opposite in the unconscious. If you over-identify with kindness, your shadow accumulates aggression, resentment, cruelty, dominance. Not because you're bad, but because the psyche demands balance. Jung was explicit about this. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When aggression is denied, it doesn't disappear. It leaks. It leaks as exhaustion, as passive aggression, as bitterness masked by politeness, as secret fantasies of withdrawal, revenge, disappearance, and most dangerously, it leaks as self-betrayal. Why kind people are exploited. People don't exploit kindness because they're monsters. They exploit it because unconscious systems seek weak points. A person who cannot say no is predictable. A person who always understands is safe to pressure. A person who never withdraws cannot be lost, and what cannot be lost cannot be valued. Jung understood this dynamic intuitively. He knew that relationships are not sustained by morality, but by psychic tension. Remove tension and the relationship collapses into entitlement. The infantilization trap. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Excessive kindness infantilizes others. When you absorb consequences, others do not mature. When you forgive without transformation, you freeze the other person at their lowest level of development. Jung would call this arrested individuation. You become the good object they unconsciously depend on while resenting you for it. That resentment eventually turns into contempt, not because you were cruel, but because you removed the necessity for growth. The moral complex. Jung warned about something called the moral complex. This is when a person attaches their identity to being good, right, ethical, kind. Once morality becomes identity, it becomes defensive. You don't help because it's appropriate. You help because you must protect your self-image, and the psyche pays a price for that rigidity. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. The more you insist on your goodness, the more dangerous your unconscious becomes. Kindness as fear of power. Let's say this clearly. For many people, kindness is not love. It is fear of their own power, fear of anger, fear of dominance, fear of being capable of harm, so they choose harmlessness instead. But Jung made a critical distinction. The most dangerous person is not the one who is capable of violence, but the one who is unconscious of it. Harmlessness is not virtue, it is impotence moralized, and the world does not respect impotence. The shadow wants the wheel. When the shadow is ignored long enough, it doesn't ask politely, it takes control. This is when the kind person suddenly disappears, cuts everyone off, burns bridges, explodes without warning. People say they changed. No, they integrated too late. Jung would say the psyche rebalanced itself violently because balance was denied consciously. Individuation requires boundaries. Individuation, Jung's central concept, is not about being nice, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness requires limits. Limits create form. Form creates identity. Identity creates presence. Without boundaries, there is no self, only diffusion. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other. The mature psyche holds both. The real cost of kindness. Kindness costs you psychic authority, erotic tension, respect, self-trust, instinct. When it is unconscious, the price is paid slowly, daily, invisibly, until one day you wake up resentful, tired, and disconnected, wondering why giving never returned anything. Conscious kindness is selective. Jung never argued against kindness, he argued against naivety. Conscious kindness is chosen, measured, bounded. It can withdraw, it can disappoint, it can survive misunderstanding. Unconscious kindness cannot. It must be liked, it must be needed, it must be justified, and therefore it is controlled. Integration, not rejection. The solution is not cruelty, it is integration, to allow yourself to say no without explanation, to tolerate guilt without obeying it, to feel aggression without acting it out, to become dangerous enough to choose restraint, not weak enough to call compliance virtue. I would rather be whole than good. Carl Jung. That sentence alone dismantles a lifetime of conditioning. Final thought. Kindness without shadow is not love, it is avoidance, and avoidance always extracts interest. The real cost of kindness is not paid in how others treat you, but in how much of yourself you abandon to keep the mask intact, and the psyche always collects its debt. Kindness is not innocent. It never was. It presents itself as virtue, but beneath it often hides fatigue, fear, and resignation. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this long before modern psychology tried to soften the truth. He understood something most people refuse to face. Morality is not truth. Morality is strategy, and kindness is one of its most effective disguises. Kindness as moral anesthesia. Modern man worships kindness the way ancient man worshipped gods. Not because it is true, but because it soothes. Kindness numbs conflict. It dulls hierarchy. It anesthetizes strength. Nietzsche called this decadence. What is good? All that heightens the feeling of power, the will to power, power itself in man. What is bad? All that proceeds from weakness. Friedrich Nietzsche. Kindness, when universal and unconditional, does not heighten power. It equalizes, it flattens, it weakens distinction, and anything that weakens distinction poisons excellence. The birth of goodness. Nietzsche dismantled morality at its root. He showed that what we call good today was not born from strength, but from resentment. The weak could not overpower the strong, so they redefined strength as evil. Pride became arrogance, dominance became cruelty, self-assertion became selfishness, and obedience became goodness. The slave revolt in morality begins when resentment itself becomes creative and gives birth to values. Nietzsche. Kindness is not neutral, it is one of the values born from this revolt. Why kindness is praised? So loudly, ask yourself a simple question. Who benefits most from universal kindness? Not the strong, not the creators, not the builders. It benefits those who demand without offering, those who take without risk, those who survive by moral pressure rather than competence. Kindness levels the playing field by handicapping the capable, and that is why it is celebrated. The hidden hatred inside good people. Nietzsche did not trust good people, not because they were cruel, but because they were dishonest. They smile while suppressing envy. They help while resenting superiority. They preach humility while secretly hating anyone who rises above them. This is resentment, a slow, poisonous hatred that cannot act directly, so it acts morally. They say, "I am good," and by that they mean, "I am not dangerous." But what kind of goodness requires you to be harmless? Kindness as self-denial. At its core, kindness demands something unnatural, that you deny your instincts, that you restrain your ambition, that you apologize for wanting more. Nietzsche saw this as life turned against itself. Life itself is will to power. To suppress this will is not virtue, it is self-mutilation. Kindness becomes a way to stay small without admitting fear. Why the kind are not respected. The world does not reward goodness, it tolerates it, it uses it, it steps on it. Because kindness that never withdraws signals one thing clearly: I will not retaliate, and where there is no threat, there is no respect. Nietzsche understood hierarchy instinctively. Respect follows force, not brutality but potential. A kind person who cannot say no has no potential. Moral blackmail. When kindness becomes expectation, it becomes weaponized. You should help. You should understand. You should forgive. This is not ethics, it is coercion. Nietzsche despised the word should, because should is how the weak govern the strong without ever taking responsibility for power. The lie of altruism. Pure altruism does not exist. Nietzsche was ruthless here. Every act serves a will, even self-sacrifice. The difference is whether the will is conscious or denied. Kindness often hides a will that is too ashamed to admit itself, a will for approval, a will for safety, a will to avoid conflict. That is not virtue. That is fear moralized. Becoming dangerous. Nietzsche did not argue for cruelty, he argued for strength. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Strength includes the capacity to harm, not to act on it blindly, but to possess it. A person who cannot be dangerous cannot choose peace, they can only comply. The cost you pay kindness costs you. Hierarchy, authority, eros, intensity, self-respect. Not immediately, gradually, until you wake up surrounded by people who feel entitled to you and unimpressed by you, because you taught them that nothing is at stake. Nietzsche's alternative. Not kindness, not cruelty, but self-affirmation. To say yes to your instincts, to accept inequality, to tolerate being misunderstood, to risk being disliked. Become who you are. Nietzsche. That command alone destroys false morality. Final thought. Kindness is not free, it is paid for with power. And if you don't choose consciously when to give it, it will be taken from you as obligation. Nietzsche warned us, a society that worships kindness will eventually punish greatness, and an individual who worships kindness will slowly erase himself to be loved. The question is not whether kindness is good, the question is, who does it serve? The real cost of kindness. A unified perspective. At first glance, Machiavelli, Nietzsche, and Jung seem to speak different languages. One writes about power and politics. Another attacks morality itself. The third explores the depths of the human psyche. But when they speak about goodness, they are saying the same thing. Kindness is not free, and goodness, when unconscious, is never innocent. Machiavelli looked at human behavior without illusions. He did not ask how people should act, but how they actually act. His conclusion was brutal but clear. People respond not to virtue, but to consequences. Goodness without boundaries destroys authority. Mercy without structure invites contempt. In Machiavelli's world, kindness that cannot withdraw becomes weakness, not because humans are evil, but because they are adaptive. They test limits, and where no cost exists, respect dissolves. Nietzsche went deeper and more violently. He did not merely criticize the misuse of kindness, he questioned its moral foundation. He exposed goodness as a historical strategy born from weakness and resentment. What society calls virtue, Nietzsche saw as self-denial disguised as morality. Kindness, in his view, often functions as a tool to restrain strength, flatten hierarchy, and punish excellence. It is praised precisely because it makes strong individuals easier to control. For Nietzsche, the true danger was not cruelty, but a morality that teaches people to feel guilty for their own power. Jung completed the picture from the inside. Where Machiavelli described behavior and Nietzsche attacked values, Jung revealed the psychological cost. He showed that excessive kindness is often not love, but a persona, a mask worn to secure approval and belonging. Every over-identification with goodness creates a shadow filled with suppressed aggression, resentment, and instinct. Kindness without consciousness leads to inner fragmentation. The psyche demands balance, and when strength is denied, it returns in destructive forms: burnout, bitterness, sudden withdrawal, or self-sabotage. Different thinkers. One conclusion: goodness without awareness produces weakness externally, resentment internally, and entitlement in others. Machiavelli teaches that kindness must be backed by consequence. Nietzsche teaches that kindness must not be rooted in fear or self-denial. Jung teaches that kindness must include the shadow, or it becomes pathological. Together, they point to the same truth. Real goodness is not softness, it is choice. Only a person capable of saying no can say yes meaningfully. Only a person capable of being dangerous can choose restraint. Only a person who integrates power can afford mercy. The real price of kindness is not paid by those who receive it. It is paid by those who give it unconsciously. And the debt is always collected, in lost respect, in internal decay, or in quiet self-erasure. Kindness is not the enemy, naivety is. And true virtue, as all three understood in their own way, is not about being harmless. It is about being whole, aware, and unwilling to betray oneself in the name of being good.